Walk into any grocery store and the refrigerated milk aisle is enormous. Whole, skim, oat, almond, and right there next to the regular kind, goat milk, sometimes sheep milk, sometimes even camel milk in specialty stores. What you will never find, not once, anywhere, is a carton of dog milk, or pig milk, or gorilla milk. That's strange, because pigs alone are farmed by the billions and produce plenty of milk. So this isn't really a story about humans refusing to drink animal milk at all. It's a story about which animals we quietly agreed to milk and which ones nobody ever seriously considered. A biologist named Olav Oftedal, who spent decades at the Smithsonian studying milk across the animal kingdom, cataloged something wild along the way. Milk isn't one substance with the same recipe in every species. It's tuned, species by species, to a completely different mission. Human milk runs only about 1 to 2% protein, low in fat, built to slowly grow a big, energy-hungry brain over years. Seal milk can push past 50% fat, because a seal pup has to build a thick layer of blubber in a matter of days before its mother heads back out to sea. Rabbit milk is so concentrated, a mother rabbit only needs to nurse her litter for about 5 minutes a day. That variation keeps going in stranger directions. Wombat milk actually changes its exact chemical recipe partway through raising a joey, shifting composition as the baby's needs change inside the pouch. Elephant milk is thin and low in fat by comparison, spread out across years of nursing instead of days. Hooded seal milk is the most extreme case on record, sometimes topping 60% fat, because the entire nursing period lasts around 4 days total, before the pup is weaned and left to fend for itself. Some animals barely produce enough milk to be worth the effort of collecting at all, no matter how nutritious it is, which turns out to matter enormously for what happened next. Here's where the premise of this whole video quietly falls apart, though. Humans don't just drink cow milk. Across history, people have built entire diets and economies around the milk of roughly a dozen different species. Goat and sheep milk, obviously. Water buffalo milk, still central to mozzarella production in parts of Italy today. Camel milk across Somalia, Sudan, and Mongolia. Yak milk in Tibet, churned into butter that gets stirred into tea. Reindeer milk among the Sami people of northern Scandinavia. Mare's milk, fermented into a mildly alcoholic drink called airag or kumis, central to Mongolian and Central Asian herding cultures for over 1,000 years. The question was never really, why don't we drink other animals' milk? It's, why exactly these dozen and nothing else? There's a term for the specific bundle of traits that decides which animals end up on that list. Milkability. A mix of temperament calm enough to be handled daily, a willingness to let milk down for a human rather than only for their own offspring, a herd structure that makes managing dozens of animals at once realistic, and a milk yield high enough that the effort is worth it. A cow, bred and selected over thousands of years, can produce dozens of liters a day. A pig, even though pigs are intelligent and easy to raise, produces milk in small amounts across a large, aggressive, fast-weaning litter. And sows are notoriously difficult to milk by hand or machine. A single wild antelope might technically produce edible milk, but nobody ever built the generations of selective breeding needed to turn that trickle into anything worth farming. The genetics backs this up from a completely different angle. A geneticist named Sarah Tishkoff traced the mutation that lets some adult humans digest milk at all, a trait called lactase persistence, and found it evolved independently, multiple separate times, in populations that had already committed to dairying. One version shows up in European populations tied to cattle herding cultures roughly 7,500 years ago. Tishkoff's own research found several entirely different mutations doing the same job in East African cattle herding groups, evolving completely separately from the European one. The biology didn't come first and invite the practice. The practice came first, and the biology scrambled to catch up with it. None of this fully explains why, 10,000 years ago, one small group of early farmers looked at a wild goat instead of a wild pig and decided that one was worth the effort. A huge amount of that specific decision is buried in prehistory, shaped by which wild animals happened to live near which humans, in what climate, with what existing skills. Nobody alive today can fully reconstruct that first calculation. Even so, most researchers in this space treat the current dozen as less of a mystery and more of a filtered list. The animals that happens to clear every hurdle at once. Manageable temperament, enough milk to bother collecting, and humans nearby willing to try. Everything else got filtered out somewhere along the way, not through some conscious verdict against them, but through 1,000 small practical failures that never got written down. Which brings the question back to dogs, pigs, and gorillas specifically. Dogs and pigs are both carnivore adjacent and omnivore mothers whose milk is dense, fatty, and produced in small volumes across large, fast-growing litters, exactly the wrong shape for large-scale collection. And carnivore mothers in general tend to be far more defensive around their young than a domesticated dairy herd needs to be. Gorillas and other great apes produce barely enough milk for a single, slow-growing infant, take years between births, and are close enough to us evolutionarily that the entire idea reads as unsettling rather than practical. The animals we milk aren't the ones that happen to make the best milk. They're the ones whose biology, temperament, and sheer numbers lined up in exactly the right way for a species that was building herds instead of hunting one animal at a time. A 13th century traveler named William of Rubruck, sent by the King of France to the Mongol court, wrote back describing watching Mongol herders drink airog by the bowlful, straight from mares, milked twice a day, across an entire steppe economy built around it. A practice that had already been running for centuries before he ever showed up to describe it. That's not some fringe historical footnote. For huge stretches of Central Asian history, fermented mare's milk wasn't a curiosity. It was closer to a staple. Step back from any single species on the list, and the whole pattern starts looking less like a diet and more like an accident of early agriculture that then hardened into permanent culture. Once a group of people committed to a particular animal, generation after generation of selective breeding pushed that species' milk yield up, while animals nobody bothered milking in the first place never got the chance to prove themselves either way. 10,000 years later, that early accident still decides exactly what's sitting in a refrigerated aisle on the other side of the planet, which maybe explains something stranger than any of the species on this list. Drinking another adult human's milk feels far more taboo to most people than drinking a cow's, even though nothing about the biology supports that gap. A psychologist named Paul Rozin spent much of his career studying disgust. And one of his consistent findings is that food taboos rarely track actual biological risk. Human breast milk is nutritionally unremarkable next to a glass of whole cow's milk, and if anything, safer since it's species matched to begin with. The discomfort isn't really about biology at all. It's about category, about what feels like it belongs on a dinner table and what doesn't. Rules that get set once, culturally, and then feel permanent and obvious forever after. So the next time you're standing in that enormous milk aisle, whole, skim, oat, almond, goat, and never once dog, pig, or gorilla, it isn't really a wall of nutritional choices. It's a list of the very specific animals that happen to be calm enough, herdable enough, and productive enough 10,000 years ago to end up permanently on the human menu, while every other mammal on Earth quietly never got asked. If questions like this get you thinking differently about the ordinary stuff in your fridge, there's a lot more of it hiding in plain sight.